Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Hendricks. I am the Policy and Supportive Services Unit Manager for the Illinois Department of Transportation. And part of the supportive services that we offer includes this workshop series, The Building Blocks of Success. We wanted to welcome you to today's presentation on what banks look for and how to connect with lenders. We are grateful to representatives from Chase Bank who are going to be doing this presentation for us. This is the part of the process where I thank Olga profusely for all the work she and the rest of the Ringgold financial management team do for us in providing uh, management assistance to the DBEs up in the northern part of the state. And uh, without any further ado, I will let Olga take it from here. Olga, good morning and thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. So we'd like to remind you to go ahead and put in the chat please put your name, company name, and your city in the chat. So today's presentation is by Moises Figueroa, a senior business consultant for Chase. And I know Mr. Carl Riley, I'm not sure if he's on, but he is also a vice president, senior relationship manager from Chase. Mr. Figueroa, is there anyone else on your team that you'd like to introduce right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take a moment. Good morning, everyone, to introduce Humberto Huerta. He is our business relationship manager. So we're kind of a partnership in terms of like what he provides, what I provide. We work together to drive a holistic conversation. So just wanted to introduce him as well, Humberto Huerta.
Thank you. So just some housekeeping rules. Make sure you mute yourself and keep video off. Make sure all attention is towards the presentation. And if you have any questions, please make sure you enter them in the Q&A, and we will answer questions as we go throughout the presentation or at the end, just depending on the feedback we get. And then this session will be recorded and provided to firms in a follow-up email along with additional helpful resources. And then there may be a short survey after the presentation, so we do ask for your feedback. Today's agenda is, well, we've already completed the introductions. We've gone over the housekeeping. We're going to go over IDOT's goals, supportive services and resources, and then we're going to jump into our presentation, navigating your cash flow, and then we'll go into our Q&A, and then just some closing remarks and evaluation. IDOT's goal. IDOT's goal is to provide assistance to DBE firms and individuals interested in doing business with the department in ways that ensure equity, access, and transparency. IDOT, in accordance with federal guidelines, strives to facilitate and implement programs that can help current and future business partners open the door to doing business with IDOT. The department works towards this goal in a variety of ways, most notably through the tools available at our resource centers. The Supportive Service Program, that is executed through our partnerships with consultants who provide management and technical supportive services assistance, in corresponding supportive services programs that fall under the umbrella of Supportive Services Program. This support is provided at no charge to IDOT's DBE firms, to firms seeking IDOT DBE certification, to Illinois UCP DBE certified firms who have an IDOT contract, and to prime contractors doing business with IDOT. We're going to go over the DBE supportive services. So learn and grow with supportive services. While opportunities may increase for certified DBEs, it is not guaranteed. Free programs and resources support firms' goals and at all phases of growth. So what that helps is with developing technical and management skills, navigating operational expenses, connecting with established firms, and then discover best practices for successful work with IDOT. You can visit idot.illinois.gov to find your nearest resource center. The resources centers. Each of IDOT's 9 districts offers essential equipment and resources to conduct business with the agency, which include computer access, internet, scanner, copier, printer, staff assistance, including support for DBE applicants. The resource centers are free of charge to all firms seeking to do business with IDOT. You can scan the QR code or visit idot.illinois.gov for a list of locations in your district. Contract compliance officers are accountable for EEO and labor compliance on state and federally funded programs. They ensure contractor compliance with state, federal laws and regulations governing the EEO and labor compliance and DBE programs. Visit idot.illinois.gov and search for contract compliance officer to find a local officer in your district. Technical and management assistance. Ongoing assistance helps DBEs maintain a competitive edge. This assistance is complementary to IDOT's DBE firms or to firms certified in the Illinois UCP that are bidding on IDOT contracts. Some of these services include estimating and bidding, equipment and resources, project site inspection, pre-qualification, bookkeeping systems and credit restoration, bonding and insurance, business and strategic plans, and marketing. Supportive services consultants. For certifications for districts 1 through 3, we have Mr. Theo Joyner from Ralph G. Moore and Associates. His information is there. District 4 through 6, Miss Melissa Hamilton. District 7 through 9, Mark Vaughn. Management services for District 1 through 3 is Ringgold Financial with Michelle Ringgold and myself. Our information is there. District 4 through 6, Melissa Hamilton. District 7 through 9, Mr. Mark Vaughn. And for the technical supportive services, for District 1 through 9, we have Mr. Ronald Brown from Gonzalez Companies. His name and number is there. Workshops and events. The Borough of Small Business Enterprises brings innovative events to the public with 3 goals in mind: to share skills to become more competitive on IDOT projects, help individuals and businesses work with IDOT and form strategic partnerships, encourage sharing of best practices, policy and procedure changes. Each district hosts events year-round to help firms to do their best work with IDOT. You can go to bit.ly/DBE workshops for more information. Today's Challenge, Tomorrow's Reward, TCTR. IDOT's annual Today's Challenge, Tomorrow's Reward conference provides opportunities for networking, skill building, and knowledge sharing among our vendor network. All firms doing business with the department, including primes and subcontractors, consultants, suppliers, and our various partners are welcome. Our next TCTR is February 21st through the 22nd, 2024 at the Crown Plaza in Springfield, Illinois. You can call the number on this slide. If you have any questions, just a reminder, you will get a copy of the slide with all this information. Available programs. The DBE reimbursement program. IDOT offers 50% reimbursement to qualifying firms in select categories while funds are available. These funds include for association, organization membership cost, training or certification class, website capability statement and logo, and much more. You can contact the Borough of Small Business Enterprises to discuss criteria for these limited time funds. The Business Development Program. Qualifying DBEs can receive firm-specific guidance to propel their growth in the transportation industry. They receive full business evaluation and analysis, tailored training that may be eligible for reimbursement, personalized recommendations to maintain competitiveness, and how to apply. Enrollment opens once per year. 15 firms are accepted annually, and applications for 2024 will be opening soon. You can visit idot.illinois.gov for more details. Mobilization payments. To account for the preparatory work and operations necessary for the movement of subcontractor personnel, equipment, supplies, and incidentals to the project site, and for all other work or operations that must be performed or costs incurred when beginning work, the contractor shall make a mobilization payment to each subcontractor. The mobilization payment must be made at least 7 days prior to the subcontractor starting work. The mobilization payment to the subcontractor is an advance payment of the reported amount of the subcontract and is not a payment in addition to the amount of the subcontract. Therefore, the amount of the advance payment will be deducted for future progress payments. The amount paid is a percentage of the value of the subcontract shown in the table below. The HCCTP program, the Highway Construction Careers Training Program, boosts participation of diverse individuals in the industry in IDOT's highway construction projects. Illinois Community College partners offer training in industry, trade, and life skills. They offer training in OSHA 10 certification, welding, forklift operation, first aid, CPR, AED, math for the trades, introduction to electrical, plumbing, sheet metal, carpentry, introduction to tools, and much more. Employment is not guaranteed. However, participants do receive job placement assistance. And here are 4 reasons why graduates make ideal hires. They are well trained to fulfill any entry-level roles, professional talent with diverse perspectives, eligible for work on IDOT project sites, reimbursement via IDOT Training Special Provisions, TPG. Who can apply for the HCCTP program? Eligibility is open to women, minority groups, and other persons from historically underutilized populations. You must be at least 18 years old, have a high school diploma or GED, valid driver's license, and ability to pass a drug test. So please remember to enter your questions in the Q&A box and maintain yourself muted. We're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mr. Figueroa.
Thank you, Olga. Good morning, everyone. And thank you again to the Bureau, Carl, and my colleague Humberto for joining the conversation today. We're super excited to really set the groundwork for you to start thinking about cash flow strategically and how it helps you drive your business forward. With that being said, hopefully you guys received the workbook. If you haven't, please put it on the chat box. That way you guys are able to receive a copy. We have free resources on chase.com, one of them being the workbooks that you'll be receiving for you to be able to walk away with some incredible worksheets, as well as some direct links to different Excel sheets that, again, they're designed to help you think about cash flow strategically. Am I able to share my screen at all, Olga?
I believe you can.
Okay. I'll give it a try in just a moment. And thank you for putting up the slides here. So cash flow is the fuel, right? And I do want to challenge you guys to think about money in, money out as just more than just, transactions in your bank account, right? So cash flow, and if I can use an analogy here really quick, it's really like if your business was a car, right? A vehicle, and your destination is ultimately the success of your company. Then your cash flow is definitely the engine and the fuel to keep that car up and running. So we want to make sure that things are running smoothly. Your inflows, and we're going to talk about how we structure or think about or categorize money in, money out. But there's two ways that we can look at it: cash inflows and cash outflows, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But with my analogy here, cash in really relates to the fuel, right? But the cash management, right, or really how do we utilize that money to move our business forward relates to the engine, right? And how effective operations and how effectively you're managing that cash in and cash out to continue having your car moving forward. Next slide, please. And it really depends, and the success really depends on the cash that you have in hand. And so one of the things that we're going to look at is how do we get a baseline? Next slide, please. Or here, am I ever able to take ownership and just kind of go through it by and click myself, Olga?
Let me see. Give me 1 second.
Okay. If not, no biggie. There's still
I
more.
know there was one in the beginning to give someone else control. But I'm
Okay. We'll keep it moving then.
And thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me, guys?
we can hear you, Carl.
Hey, Carl.
Great. Excellent. All right. So thank you, Moises, for doing this. Appreciate you so much for sharing this presentation with everybody today. Again, my name is Carl Riley with Chase Bank. Just wanted to say hi and thanks for the opportunity to share today.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll keep moving. If I find it, I'll
Yeah,
send it
absolutely.
to
We'll keep
Carl.
moving forward. Typically, when we run these seminars, we have a survey done, right, to kind of gauge what the audience feels, how confident they feel in regards to their cash. Obviously it doesn't look like we have a poll today, but, think about how are you feeling about your cash management right now, right? Like, how are your finances? How do you feel about your financial stability? If you're on the left side of the screen, which is very concerned or a little concerned, right, that's when you want to make sure you wrap around team of advisors. Obviously, the Bureau is an incredible resource, but different advisors as an accountant, a CPA, a business banker, a consultant, right, that can help you navigate and make you, allow you to feel much more optimistic and get you on the other side of the spectrum, which is obviously very optimistic and very confident. So with that, please, next slide. Okay, what are we going to cover today? We're going to review some cash flow basics. We're going to talk about maximizing cash in. And I really love the topic of cash flow because it incorporates quite various parts of a business model or your current operations, right? We're also going to talk about how do we minimize cash out, right? Or how do we widen the gap between the time you receive your money and the time you actually got to send it out to pay bills, pay vendors, and fund operations. And then we'll talk about how to make cash work for you. Next slide, please. All right, next slide. All right, so 50% of businesses, and this is across the board, you guys, there was a study done by the JP Morgan Chase Institute between 2013 and 2017 of what's known as cash buffers. Does anyone know what a cash buffer is? Anyone in the audience? Or have you ever heard the term? Okay, everybody shy this morning. A cash buffer is really the indication or how many days a business can have its stores open, assuming you stop taking money in, right? So if you're running a construction company and you're not able to take money in, how long can your business been operating? How long can you keep your doors open? And so 50%, what the research found is that 50% of small business owners are able to operate or keep their doors open less than 15 days after they stop receiving money, right? Let me give you some other stats here, kind of give you a general understanding and more context by industry. And I know we have industry or companies that directly want to work with the Department of Transportation. So they're going to be more in regards to transportation, construction, right? More of the trades. But let me give you some stats here. So restaurants operate typically with a buffer of 16 days, repair and maintenance 18 days, retailers 19 days, construction 20 days. Right, so that means that construction companies on average have about 20 days worth of cash to keep the doors open. Personal services 21, wholesalers 23, metal and machinery, probably some of you in the audience, 28 days. Healthcare services 30 days, other professional services 33, high-tech manufacturing 32, and real estate 47 days, right? And that is the average, right? And so really how you define financial stability is going to be up to your interpretation of that, but that's the average. And so if you're under the average, obviously there's a need to get some work done, right? And at least move you up into the average from your particular industry. Next slide, please. Okay, absolutely. Next slide, please. Now we break up cash flow, or how we understand and categorize money in, money out, in 3 buckets. We have operations, or operating cash flow. We have investing, and it relates to you keep investing in your business, right? So for a construction company, that would be machinery. That would be hiring a new foreman, right? So you're investing in your business. And then financing would relate to different medias of you to receive cash through financial institutions, whether that's through a line of credit or a term loan. So we want to categorize how money is coming in, money is coming out in these 3 buckets to get a holistic understanding of how you're managing that money. In the workbooks, you'll be able to get a more detailed description of it. And we have an incredible tool, next slide please, that is free for you guys to use and utilize it today. You can jump on it today, when you have maybe 30 minutes to set aside and utilize this tool to plug in some data. I actually had an opportunity to create an example that I want to walk you guys through, but you can find this free tool on chase.com/cash flow analysis, and it'll take you directly to the screen that I'm about to show you. So if you guys don't mind, give me a second here while I share my screen. Goodness. Okay, see if it works now. No, it doesn't seem to, will not allow me to share here. Okay, although can we bring back the slides? I'm not able to share. All right, next slide, please.
I think you're able to take control now. Can you try it, see if it works?
Okay. Oh, it's telling me I gotta log in and log back out.
Oh, okay. We'll continue with me.
Okay, well, again, you'll be able to have access through that direct link. Here you get a snapshot of what I would show you in terms of inputting your inflows. So this is in relation to money coming in, right? And there's different categories that you can go through with the 3 main buckets that we talked about in the previous slides. So the first slide you guys are going to be very, very familiar with is operating inflow. So this is you making revenue, right? If you're a construction company, this is doing service work. If you're a product company, then this is you selling that particular product. And so you're actually able to enter your sales, and there's different categories. You can put online sales, location sales, and there's just a great little breakdown of where the money is coming in relation to your revenue. And so you're also able to put the description, a quick description on there, your frequency, which is quite important, like how often are you receiving money. You can measure this monthly, or you can measure it quarterly, you can measure it yearly. If you guys are able to now transition over to working for or contracting with the Department of Transportation, right, then the scope of work may be quarterly, right? So maybe you're receiving work on a quarterly basis, and you're able to plot that in this particular chart. And of course, you're able to put in the amount. Now, on the investment side, let's say you're a construction company and you allow a trucking company to park their trucks in your lot, then you're able to receive income because you own the location, and there you're able to sublease your plot for a trucking company to park their trucks, right? So you're able to plot in that inflow and any financing that you receive. During COVID, many businesses received the PPP funds from the federal government to be able to keep their business afloat. So you can input some of that information as well. And this is all in regards to money coming into your business and breaking it down by sections. Next slide, please. Similar to the inflows, the outflows will then dictate what's going out, right? The biggest expense for most businesses is going to be payroll, right? So getting an understanding of how much payroll is in your business is critical. Other operating expenses, right? Overhead, insurance, gas, cost of goods. So different categories, you're able to select them, input the frequency of how often you're paying for those items, and obviously the amount. Investing, so this relates to you purchasing new equipment, right? You got a new tractor to move more dirt. This is where you would input that information, even though it's an asset to your company that would allow you to grow. It is an outflow because you're paying, whether that's a lease payment or a actual loan payment, you're paying that money out. And then any financing, again, relation to, since you own the property where your business is at, you got to pay your mortgage, right? And so you can input that information as well. Next slide, please. And then the tool very eloquently then shows you in graph mode, right? What's coming in, what's going out, and what's the balance at the end of the year. More critical though, in the right side of the screen, you'll be able to see a graph that shows fluctuation, right? And it'll strategically tell you, like, where do I have gaps versus how much is coming in versus how much is going out, and how or who can help me bridge that gap, right? That's where your team of advisors will be able to help you find some solutions or explore potential changes into the way you operate to not have a month where your inflows are less than your outflows, right? Because then you're in the red. And so again, that graph and understanding it holistically, maybe on a 12-month period, allows you to properly forecast then the next 12 months of saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't be buying concrete in January. Maybe I should really hold off until March before the spring market is up and running. And looking at it from that perspective. So again, the tool is free for anyone to use. You don't have to be a Chase customer. You don't have to create a Chase.com account. You guys are able to access it directly through Chase.com/cashflow analysis. Next slide, please. We just went through that. Please make sure that you jump on the workbook and have an opportunity to sit down. Obviously, as part of my role, I'm able to help you, walk you through this, and actually, go through those numbers with you as well. Next slide. Maximizing cash in. Love this topic because it incorporates business development, right? And identifying business opportunities. In the work that I do, in the initial conversations, we're doing a SWOT analysis. If you haven't heard what a SWOT analysis is a planning and strategic planning tool that we use to understand internal strengths and internal weaknesses and external opportunities and external threats that are affecting your business. Cash in really speaks to, your strengths internally. What is your business doing well? And externally, what are some business opportunities that you can chase? Obviously, you being in the conversation with the Bureau and trying to figure out how to work and get contracted by the Department of Transportation, that entails an external opportunity that your business can take advantage of. Next slide, please. Knowing your competition is very critical. Next slide. We have an incredible worksheet. Next slide, please. as well that you guys can utilize. The link is on the top right of the screen, chase.com/competitive analysis. If I had the opportunity to share my screen, I would have walked you guys through it. But very simply is saying, I'm going to compare myself objectively to other companies within my region that I operate my business in. And so you're able to plot in your competitors. You're also able to plot in what kind of value they provide to their clients. And the cool thing is that you assign you assign a value rating to that value of service that they provide to their customers, right? So you may have, if you're a construction company or trucking company, let's say, and one of your competitors has 20 trucks and you only have 5 trucks, well, their value to their clients is that they have more capability to carry more items for their clients, right? They can provide more freight services than you can because you only have 5 trucks. And so you're able to assign a value rating and then a cost associated with it, or expected revenue from that particular service that they're providing. And you're also able to assign a price rating. What this information does, it gives you a plot of where you're at, where you land in terms of price versus value, and where your competitors lie between price and value. Now, if the screen was a little bit bigger, I'll be able to show you that, on the top right quadrant, those are companies that are charging more and are providing more value. And so they may be companies you want to get to know a little bit better of how you can incorporate items that they may be doing, right? On the bottom left, then those are competitors that are charging less and providing less value. Like, what are they doing wrong? What lessons can you take that you can then stay away from that, right? And so you can also see in this particular example, if you guys see that red, or not red, it's more of like purplish middle dot where the y-axis and the x-axis intersects, you see there are 2 competitors, one to the right, one to the left, within that same axis. And so what that says is there's a competitor out there that provides the same value I do, but they're actually charging more, right? So are you charging appropriately to your clients is another big question of how you can maximize cash in. It's an incredible tool, you guys. Highly recommend that you take the time to do it. Of course, more than happy to help you with that as well. Next slide. I basically just walked through this. Next slide. All right, segmenting your clients, right? Next slide. Knowing and understanding your clients is very critical, regardless of the business that you're in, right? You want to strategically create loyalty and expand your base, right? Having an understanding of what your competitors are doing, having an understanding of your income and your expenses outflow allows you to say, okay, I'm targeting this new particular customer, let's say the Department of Transportation. Do I have the ability to actually take that client, right? And understand the needs of that client. Next slide. Again, we have another lovely worksheet, right? This presentation is really like for you to turn theory into operations as fast as you can, right? And so plugging in that information and then walking away with 2-3 learnings that you can immediately turn around and apply to your business. This is what we're trying to get at. We're stepping away from theory and really plugging into let's take some action. And so this worksheet allows you to do 2 things. Understand your existing customers, right? So who is your best customer right now? Now, most people would think, and when I have this conversation with business owners, and I ask them, what do you think your best customer is? They typically tell me that is the customer that they see often, right? Is the customer, if you're running a coffee shop, just for example's sake, then your best customer is the client that you see every day buying a cup of coffee. That would be me for Dunkin' Donuts, but you would be wrong, right? The definition that we're looking at as the best customer is, and you guys may be able to read it a little bit here, it says, they don't come in often, but when they do, they spend a lot. right? So this is a client that, doesn't come around often, right? This is your $100,000 contract when most of your clients are around $25,000 contract, right? That is your best client because that provides you or puts you on a different playing field, right? Because you're going from 25 average contract to 100,000. That's your best customer, right? You're not going to see those often, but how do we increase the frequency of that best customer? So then that's your new base, right? And then for your next step would be that $250,000 contract best customer, right? And that's how you systematically and strategically move up in finding opportunities that are bigger. For your existing customers, the other one is the sustaining customer, right? This is the guy that buys a cup of coffee every day from Dunkin' Donuts, but I only spend $3 a day, right? In my analogy, then the best customer would be the branch manager that comes in and buys donuts, coffee, muffins, and ice cream for the whole team for that week. So that customer spent $100 versus my $3 that I spend just for my cup of coffee, right? So then you have a good basis of who your existing customers are, what value are you providing to them, and how do you keep them engaged. Now, on the second half of the screen or worksheet, you'll talk about potential customers. These are individuals that you're chasing or want to ultimately be able to service. The lookalike customer is the client that you are able to service. You have the capability of servicing them, but they're going somewhere else for your services. Why? Why are they doing that, right? And diving into how can you then provide a better message to them and be able to reach customers you can already service. And then your aspirational customer, this is probably going to be the Department of Transportation, right? This is a huge entity, right? With complex needs. This is like, how do I make sure I'm in a position to be able to, once I get my opportunity, be able to deliver properly, right? So again, great worksheet for you to segment your customers, understand what you're doing well to your existing clients, and figuring out how you can reach that new tier of clients as well. I'm going to start talking right there. Do you guys have any questions before I move on?
You help them see how you grow from a $25,000 customer to 100,000 and how you build that base out. Because, as a banker, we want to see gross sales, and then we try to give you a percentage of that in your line of credit or percentage of that for your loan. So, it's great that you're taking them through that process of how we think and how they should be thinking about growing the business.
Awesome.
Anybody have any questions?
All right, next slide, please. I actually went through this already. So, yep, next slide. Perfect. Any insights? Anyone want to share, right, when thinking about the 3 segment of customers? Anyone wants to share any insights of recent clients that you service? Or a big win, right? You typically don't help that particular client and you were surprised they came to you. What was kind of some big insights or understandings that you gained by helping that client? Anyone want to chime in? All right, next slide. All right, how do we then make sure that they understand the value? Once you segmented your clients, how do you then communicate that value to them, right? So obviously point number 1 is getting better at communication, right? Now that you have identified your best client, your sustaining customer, your lookalike customer, and your aspiring client, how can you tailor your communication to directly speak to that consumer segment, right? Because each one of them are going to have different needs, and they're going to receive the message differently. If you just try to do like a holistic message, you're not targeting anybody. People might interpret it wrongly versus what you're actually trying to say. So it's critical to tailor your communication depending on which segment that particular customer is in. Reward loyalty, right? This is a big one. Do you have a rewards program? This may be getting into more of like retail, e-commerce, right? But from your standpoint, if you're a construction company, if you're a trucking company, if you provide any of the trades that the Department of Transportation is looking to get, how do you build loyalty, right? That may be in relation to your employees, right? And rewarding their loyalty. And then identifying new audiences, right? You want to make sure that you're staying in the loop of how people are communicating and where a particular audience may be located. All right, next slide, please. Considering your prices, next slide. This is a good one. It really talks to your competitive analysis, right? And how do we, after the competitive analysis has been done, how do we change for the better, right? Are there cost measures that we can take, and can we outvalue our competitors? Next slide, please. Bundling items and services. Again, right, because the Department of Transportation has complex needs, right? Being able to provide a complete proposal, and I'm sure Olga and the Bureau are able to help you dive into that, and Brian as well, of how do you position yourself and your services to have the best shot. Discounts on volume orders, right? When we think about commerce, maybe if you have a concrete company, right, or a construction company, then how do you provide a bigger volume or a bigger contract, but at a discounted price that allows the customer to spend more money, but they still feel like they're getting a deal, right? And then favorable payment terms for logging commitments. This is critical as well. If you have, or you're helping a small business owner like do their lot, you're gonna put on new concrete on their lot, right? I'm sure that's a big job. Maybe that's a $200,000 job for that particular business. Are you providing favorable payment terms? And more critically, are you also accepting payment the way people pay nowadays? What I mean by that is, are you able to receive credit cards, right? Are you able to receive wire transfer? Like, are you properly set up to receive payment the way your clients are paying for services? Next slide. Collect on your sales, right? A clear, efficient process. This is not just receiving cash in, right? And the world has increasingly become cashless. So what is your process in getting the funds from your customer's account into yours in the most efficient and fastest way possible, right? So you want to make sure we avoid some bottlenecks, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. Next slide. Your receivables process. So we have Humberto here on the line, and he's one of our business relationship managers. This is a huge chunk of the conversation that he has with his clients. So I'm actually going to tap his shoulders to talk a little bit about improving the receivable process, if you don't mind, Humberto.
Thanks, Moises, for the handoff here. As far as speeding up the receivables process, we want to think of different ways that a business can get paid. You can receive cash, you can receive checks, ACH, wires, you can use credit cards to pay. Right, there's several different ways you can collect payment from your clients. I think that, depending on the scenario, you can always opt for the most cost efficient, which would of course be an ACH deposit, right? It doesn't cost you anything to get an electronic deposit to your account. It gets deposited next day from whenever the client or your client sends the money. But let's say your client tells you, hey, I can pay you with my credit card today, or, can you wait 30 days for me to pay you? Well, you can accept using our merchants or using merchant services with any bank, really. You can accept payment with a wire. You can accept payment with a check. Keep in mind with checks, if it's a large check and deposit checks frequently, there may be a hold, right, on that check. So it may slow down the amount of time or the timeline for you to get paid. So all these little nuances make a difference as far as cash flow, which is the focus of this conversation. And it's good to inform yourself as far as what your options are, so you can more or less shift and select the right tool, depending on the client, depending on the scenario, depending on where your business is at that month. Thanks,
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah, thank you for that, Humberto. And I think about my daughter takes valet, so she does valet, and the place that I take her, they took my credit card, they put it on automatic pay. So the first of the month, without me doing anything, they're able to get their funds, right? So they're invoicing much faster because they don't have to wait for me to get the bill, jump on the computer, or give them a call to pay them with my credit card. It's automatically done, right? They set up a system that is extremely efficient, that every first of the month they can count on that cash flow coming in, or the inflow coming in, and be able to fund their growth and their operations properly without any hiccups, right? Unless there's an issue with my credit card, then they're for sure going to get all their cash money in on the first, which is incredible, and I wanted to throw that out there. Next slide, please. Do you have a creative approach in generating revenue? And this is a great topic because I spent, as a consultant and a coach, I spend quite a bit of time diving into this particular question, right? Business development. How are you approaching finding new business? And more importantly, do you have a system or a framework to get that done? And so in the conversation, in the coaching that we do, we use, or I teach, the OKR system, or operations and key results framework, to then properly strategize, number one. So like, what are we going to do? What's the goal? What are we going to do? How are we going to track our activities are on track to meet that objective, and what specific actions we're doing on the daily basis to get the key results that we're looking to accomplish. And so you're going to get some tips here, but you have to have a way, a structured way, in finding and generating more revenue. So next slide, please. A great story. You'll find the full story on the workbook. Highly suggest you guys take a look at it. Next slide. Minimizing cash out. It kind of missed a couple of slides, but no biggie. But again, right, having an opportunity to provide a systematic way of business development that would yield the result of you increasing revenue, right? And we have a worksheet, again, that we can kind of work through and give you guys some direction on that. So all those previous slides really dictated into how do we increase revenue, right? We talked about understanding, number one, a baseline, right? So what are your buffer days? Very simply, you're going to take your cash balances divided by your daily outflow. So the way you calculate it, you can connect with your CPA, your accountant, your bookkeeper, your your finance staff, whoever holds the numbers, and say, hey, how much am I spending a month on a 30-day time frame? Let's say that number is, for the sake of argument, $30,000. You take $30,000 divided by 30 days. That means that you spend on average $1,000 a day. Your cash balances is whatever you have on your bank account right now in terms of checking, savings, right? Just liquid assets. You may have a CD that you're saving something for, right? But typically there's a checking account, there's a savings account, and a couple of those where you manage different transactions. So you take your cash balances from those accounts, add them all up, whatever that number is. Let's just say you got $100,000 in cash balances, divided by $1,000 in average outflows, or what you on average spend per day, and that would give you your buffer days. In that particular example, is going to be 100 days buffer, right? And that would give you a gauge of how healthy or how financially stable your company is. Now, how do we increase that? How do we increase those buffer days, or how do we increase more revenue coming in? First off, you got to understand your competition, right? You got to understand where you stand versus the competitive environment. And then you start looking for a strategic way of increasing revenue streams, and then having an efficient process in collecting once services are delivered, right? That's in a summary, that's in a nutshell. Now we're going to talk about minimizing cash out, right? Or not that I'm telling you not to pay your bills, but how do you stretch between when you get the money versus when you got to pay it out, right? That time frame gives you a lot of flexibility, right? And it allows you to navigate challenges when you have a bad month, right? Because business happens, life happens. You may have a bad month, and that window between money in, money out allows you to manage those challenges much more effectively, and allow you to be strategic about it. Next slide, please. Know where and when cash goes out. Absolutely, right? So again, going to that free tool, when are the outflows going, right? And plotting those outflows accordingly, weekly, right? Monthly, quarterly. When are the outflows going? Next slide. And of course, you have to manage vendor relationships, because your vendors, you pay your vendors, right? They're a partner, hopefully, right? They're a strategic partner to help your business, but you also got to pay for whatever services you get from your vendors. And so we have a great slide, or worksheet, I should say, to help you understand your current vendor relationships and what can be done to increase or to better that relationship, and have better and more favorable terms for your individual business, right? And so there's some great questions here to kind of ponder on. But next slide. We have the worksheet. Next slide. I think it'll show a bigger picture there. Next slide. Maybe not. I'm sorry. Can you go back to the worksheet? Thank you. So if you try to open that up in the workbook, or actually, no, you have the direct link, chase.com/vendor analysis. You'll be able to download the Excel sheet. But if you squint and you try to see what's on this particular page here, you're going to find a couple of things. Number one, you're going to plot in all your vendors. Okay. You're going to plot
I
in.
do have the work. Do you want me to try to bring up the worksheet to see if it can, the workbook?
Oh, please, if that's
Yeah,
possible.
give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and share that. Give me one
Okay,
second.
cool. Thank you.
Okay, just let me know what page it's on.
Yeah, keep going. I think it might be. Oh, no, go up. More. Here, let me look it up here quickly. It's on page 16.
Oh, there we go.
Page 16. So if you want to copy and paste that link right there, chase.com/vendor analysis to an internet browser, or maybe double click it. Or
You want me to bring? Yeah,
or
let
you
me
can
bring.
just type it in. Yeah.
This one, vendor analysis.
If not, this is way better than the previous slide, so we can stay on here and I can walk them through it if it didn't open up.
Yeah, it didn't open up.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, this is pretty good. Thank you for pulling this up. So this is what you guys will see once you're able to download the Excel sheet on your individual computer. And so the idea is that you're gonna plot in all your different vendors and how much you're currently spending with that particular vendor. Now, in the conversation, we typically explore what size your vendor is. Sometimes the smaller the company, the smaller the vendor, the more flexible they are. The larger the vendor, they will be less flexible, but they'll provide more variety, right? They'll typically have different products or services that you may need that a smaller vendor may not have. So you want to have a good mix of both, and analyzing, from a holistic view, like, what percentage do I have in small vendors? What percentage do I have in medium to large vendors? And you want to have a good mix between the two. Now, obviously you can list out what kind of services you get from them just to have a quick reference. But the key here is really doing the criteria. And this is where you break down between 3 items or 3 criteria that we're scoring each vendor by. First criteria is product quality, right? Like how quality is their product, right? Number 2 is price, how expensive, and then timeliness of delivery, or how quickly you're able to get it into your hands, right? And then you're gonna assign a score between 1 to 5 for each particular criteria for each vendor. Now, from your perspective as the business owner, trying to navigate these relationships, you also got to say, well, what's most important to me and my business? In my business, is it more important to have the best quality? Is it important to have the best price? Or is it most important to have time to delivery, right? So you got to assign a value between, and each criteria, you got to assign a value of 1 for most important, a value of 2 for medium, and a 3, not saying that is the least important, but is the one you're able to say, I can do without if I have the first and the 2, right? Unfortunately, you can't have all 3 most of the time. You can't have the best quality with the best price at the fastest delivery possible. It just doesn't work that way. So you got to assign your own individual weight to each particular criteria. So for this particular example, I believe this is like I don't know. I think the example is it's a restaurant buying paper products, right? And so for them, their most important critical aspect is price, right? So they're looking for the best price out there. Second criteria is how fast they can get their paper products in-house. And then the last is product quality. So they're looking for the least expensive paper plates, let's say, that could be delivered quite rapidly to their business. That's what they're looking for. And so then they go down by each vendor and say, this particular vendor, what's their product quality? So for vendor number one, the quality of their products are a 5. So they got the top notch, they got the luxurious paper plates, right? Their price is okay, they're a 3. And then their delivery is a 3. So they'll probably take a little bit longer to get to me, maybe 2 weeks instead of 1. And so collectively, the Excel sheet will then do the math for you and assign a weighted score, right? That weighted score then gives you then one way to look at who is your strongest relationship, who you should keep, who you should try to negotiate with, and who you should ultimately try to replace with another vendor. This encompasses minimizing cash out, because if you can get more favorable terms in relation to what's important to you, you're going to be in a good spot with your vendor relationships. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Please feel free to unmute yourself to ask any questions if you do have questions.
I know I'm a master at presenting, but these topics are new to many, so please feel free to ask. Can we go back to the slides?
Yes, let me go. Give me 1 second.
Awesome. So now that we have reviewed, next slide, please. There's the case study. You guys can read on there from the workbook. Now that we have dived into our vendors, we got a pretty good feeling on maximizing those relationships. Now we got to look internally, right? And that's going to be your individual team. And so, do you have the right staff members for the activities that are needed to get done, right? Can we automate some task, right? With the, how accessible technology is nowadays, with new software that can automate manual tasks that require manual input can now be automated, right? And so looking at your individual processes to say, where can I make it more efficient? You yourself as a business owner, I'm sure you're trying to do everything under the sun for your business, but it doesn't allow you a lot of time for you to strategize, right? And be the CEO of the business. And so where can you yourself delegate items that are on your plate right now to one of your team members? And the reason why, and I do an exercise called the $1,000 hour CEO. By plotting all the activities that you do in any given week, right? So Monday, you plot all your activities, and for the rest of the week, you do all your activities. Once you have that list, then you're gonna assign a dollar amount to that activity. For example, if one of those activities is ordering checks, well, that can probably be done by a virtual assistant, and pay that virtual assistant $10 an hour. So you're gonna assign $10 to that particular task. The premise of the exercise is for you to get as close to possible of doing activities that yield the highest possible amount or return to your business, ultimately saying, I'm only doing tasks that pay me $1,000 per hour, right? And so where can you delegate? Other gaps that can be filled by a contractor, right? This is critical, particularly in the world of contracting with the Department of Transportation, because needs are complex. Maybe you need a subcontractor for a specific task that you don't have expertise on. And then seasonal staffing, right? Are you prepare for the influx of a lot of work during the summer, what kind of strategy you have in regards to staffing right now. Next slide. Real estate, right? This is a conversation where, Humberto excels as well in kind of like understanding, what does your current rent look like, and does it make sense for you to own? Are you able to own? So any notes on that, Humberto, just from a real estate perspective?
Yeah, definitely. As far as acquiring real estate, I think that the general consensus that a lot of clients walk in with is that you need 25, 30% down for commercial property. But in reality, you only need as little as 10% down with the SBA program. What does owning real estate look like? We can definitely give you a great idea of what that looks like versus renting. What are rents looking like if your business is growing and scaling and you need more rent or you need a second location. It's good to compare, right? What's the cost of a mortgage plus property taxes? At the end of the day, you're building an asset on your balance sheet for your business. So a lot of benefits to owning, but sometimes it does make sense to rent. It's good to understand what the real estate market looks like. I've seen a lot of retail or a lot of different landlords helping with build outs, reimbursing business owners for build outs or a percentage of the build out. So understanding that positions your business in much more in a much better place, especially when we're considering cash flow, right? If you move into a place that you need a modified bid for it to work for your business, that's cash right out of your balance sheet. That's cash right off of your top line. So it's good to understand what the market looks like and negotiate with the landlord and say, hey, look, I'd love to move in at this rent, but it's going to cost me $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000, whatever the case is, to make this space usable for my business. Would you be willing to split the cost, or how can you help me? So all these little tidbits help a small business.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Humberto. Yeah, great notes on that. I come from a background too, before I went to business banking and residential lending. So this is like a cost benefit analysis, right? Like how much are you renting? What are your current needs of living space? And, are you able to own? So great notes. Thank you, Humberto. Next slide, please. Inventory, right? Yes, absolutely. And again, this is going back to that cash flow tool. When are you buying the goods that you need to be able to deliver your service that you're providing or the product that you're selling, right? Inventory is such a key item. Who has been to a restaurant that has about 7 pages worth of items that they are able to cook for you? Not good, right? Not only does it make it harder for me to choose, which makes your waiter come back 3 times, right? Which, but from an inventory perspective, can you imagine how much inventory that restaurant needs to have in order to produce, 100 different dishes rather than just having 25 dishes maybe, right? So, right, understanding the inventory in relation to what is your value proposition and what you are looking to become an expert in, an industry leader in, and focusing on that rather than trying to swallow the whole gamut of potential services that your particular company can provide, right? Being very strategic about, where you're delivering your services versus your inventory is going to help you minimize your cash out. Next slide, please. Another case study, again, in the workbook. Next slide. Marketing, right? How are you packaging your communications and your value into getting the message out, right? Nowadays with social media, with websites, email marketing, they're very cost efficient ways. Of course, the big question is how do they all work together and cohesively provide a true communication strategy, right? So understanding, and maybe that is hiring a advisor, a marketing consulting, for example, that will cost you money up front, but is an investment that then you can continue on the same trend to be able to get your message out more, get more customers. You know what I mean? So it's not just the cost associated with implementing new marketing, is truly an investment that will get you some return down the line, right? So diving into your marketing. Next slide. Another case study. Next slide. And then making cash work for you. Absolutely. Next slide. This is where it encompasses kind of all the different buckets that we have talked about so far, right? Getting a baseline of where you're at, how long can I operate if another COVID happens, right? That a lot of businesses had to answer that question when March of 2020 came into play. Like, how long can I keep my doors open before I gotta shut off, right? So utilizing and recognizing what moves and what items are affecting your business and your cash in, cash out, more important than ever. We saw such a big case study, and I'm sure Harvard Business School is going to be doing case studies for the next 20 years on how businesses navigated that particular situation with COVID. Next slide. The tool, again, just recapping, you guys using the cash flow tool, free, no need for you to create a Chase account, is on there for you guys to utilize. Next slide. And then, you know, as we kind of went through the different buckets, the basics, maximizing cash in, minimizing cash out, right? Hopefully you guys are moving into the right side of the spectrum, which is like you are feeling more confident in your ability to manage cash flow. You may have new questions that have popped up. That is where we can provide, and obviously in conjunction with the Bureau, more direction and more, you know, pen to paper actions that you can take. So please utilize the resources that you have on hand, both on my side, which is the business coaching, all about strategy. How do we strategically plan? How do we explore different solutions? Humberto on his end, he's more on the solution, services, and implementation of what could be applied towards your business in moving forward, right? And we work in tandem to give you a holistic approach to growing your business. And obviously with the support of, you know, different great organizations such as the Bureau. Next slide. And hopefully you guys are putting something on paper, right? If you take some time this week to work on the workbook, you may be able to put a strategy together that is more conducive of you having a more financially stable business. And hopefully you guys are able to put that into play. And I believe that's the end of presentation. Any questions?
We're opening up the floor for questions. If you want to unmute yourself for questions, you're more than welcome to. I'm checking the Q&A. There's nothing in the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, comments, please feel free to do so now.
I have a question. Once a company figures out their cash flow, let's say they approach your bank for financing, what are the criteria that you would look at in order for the bank to approve them for a line of credit or a loan? And how long would that take?
Thank you for that question. Humberto, I'm going to tap your shoulders since you're a resident manager here.
Hi, great question. As far as what banks typically look for a line of credit, kind of dive into the 5 C's of credit, but in a short summarized version, we want to make sure you can pay us back. So typically banks want like to see one multiple of earnings versus the line of credit. So At Chase, it's $1.2 coming in for every dollar that we lend out. This is an example for a $100,000 line of credit. It does not mean we want to see $120,000 coming in. Usually that number is $36,000 in net income on your tax return. So, which brings up an important point. It's good to have a good accountant that you can have a conversation with to say, hey, look, I will need a line of credit at some point. I will need bank financing. How can I make sure that my books or my tax returns look healthy to a bank, right? Generally, if you don't have that conversation with an accountant, what I've seen is that the tendency is to try to write off as much as possible and lower that net income number to lower the tax obligation. But kind of catch-22, right? If on a tax return a bank doesn't see profits, lending's going to be challenging. Another thing banks look at is personal credit score. Generally, lines of credit will be personally guaranteed. So you want to make sure that your personal credit score is strong. How strong? The higher, the better. I always tell clients with SBA programs, we can do lines of credit with 650, 660. But the higher, the better. Always make sure that your personal credit score is in good standing. And the third thing that I would say is as far as timeline, generally a line of credit can take anywhere from, call it a week to 6 weeks, just depending on the complexity, right? Generally, when I talk to clients and I advise on having that conversation with the bank, have it before you need it, right? Always have that conversation before you need a line of credit. Typically, what I've found is that once a client comes to the bank and says, hey, I need a line of credit, it's already too late. A contract's been presented, it's been signed, and work is underway, right? There's almost no scenario where the bank can turn around a line of credit next day. So always evaluate, always take a look at a line of credit or have that conversation with your bank when you don't need the line of credit. It's the best time to get that set up.
And what's the maximum or minimum amount of years that a company needs to be in business for the bank to actually process it? Can they be in business 6 months, or does it have to be over a year, or what?
Typically, we're looking at 2 years, and that's across the industry for the most part. Chase can do startup lending. So let me explain a startup. A startup generally is considered a company that has 2 years or less of financial history or time in operation. Can we do it? We can take a look at it. Generally when we're looking at startup lending, we want two major things: strong credit score and outside cash flow. What is outside cash flow? It's just another source of repayment. It may be, some kind of pension income. It may be rental income. It may be a spouse's income. Something outside of the business to secure that line of credit for repayment is what we look at for startups. But it's not to say that you can't get capital, right? There's a lot of CDFIs or community development financial institutions that do provide capital to startups, and they're funded by banks like Chase, Fifth Third, Bank of America. So you can always start this credit conversation. It's never too early to start this credit conversation. One particular organization is Allies for Community Business. They provided capital to startups, and sometimes we come in right after to provide capital. So it's never too early to have that conversation.
Other thing, Theo, sorry if I can throw another pivot there for financing. Part of my job is also finding external resources, and that includes different grants that may be available. So we partner with the DCEO office, right? That's the Department of Community. They provide information on different grants. So depending on the different entities that are funding the grant, they put the requirements. So for example, the City of Chicago is providing a grant for businesses that started after COVID, but really haven't been able to recuperate for starting their business during such a hard time, right? And so there's different grants out there that may be eligible, that you may be eligible to apply and look at it from that perspective. Of course, what Humberto mentioned about the CDFIs, that's another critical point. And I can connect you with additional resources or different organizations that may be able to point you and provide, different financing options that are not traditional to financial institutions.
Now, how do you guys look at construction companies? Since a lot of construction companies don't have a lot of equipment, they don't have the end product that they're working on is not theirs. How difficult is a construction company? And when you talk about guarantees, I know SBA has one, like you said, DCE with Advantage Illinois. If the bank can't process it themselves, will they look for outside resources that'll help guarantee a certain percent of the financing?
Yeah, for construction companies, general contractors, the challenge, of course, is collateral, right? What collateral are we looking at? Typically, it's accounts receivable. It's your equipment. It's your inventory. All of that we can take a look at as far as collateral. Collateral is not going to break a deal, right? That's where the SBA guarantee comes in. The SBA is there to help banks provide capital to small businesses. So, if the collateral is short, typically a bank would use an SBA guarantee to help provide that line of credit. One thing I would say is that, generally banks will look at that repayment source that I mentioned earlier, specifically Chase. Some other banks may say, hey, if you're financing equipment, we'll take a lien out on the equipment and, you can pay us back based on collateralization of the equipment, right? So all banks are process credit a little bit different. So it's good to have conversations with multiple banks just to see, what that difference might be. You have your larger national banks like Chase, Bank of America. You have your local regional banks like Wintrust, and you have community banks. You have smaller institutions, credit unions that will look at credit a little bit different. So I would encourage you to take a look at all three different segments to see what makes sense for that specific situation.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Do we have any other questions out there? I just checked the chat. There's nothing there or Q&A. Thank you so much, Moises, for your presentation today. Thank you, Humberto. Great presentation from Chase. We really appreciate you. It was very, very insightful. Thanks for the worksheets. That's great for our DBEs to have. That's a great tool for them to have. So thank you so much for helping us out today to host today's workshop.
I have a question. How soon will you guys send out the link for the workbook?
I believe Brian sent it out if you signed up for it, Theo. If not, I can send you the workbook directly.
Okay.
I'll send that to you right now. As soon as we get off the call, I can go ahead and send it over to you.
Yeah. And
Well, one last question. What are some of the things that when Chase denies a company outside of personal credit score, what are typical things that people get denied for and not sufficient, I guess, capital coming in to repay the loan?
For denial, so there's different things that the bank looks at. outside of credit, outside of that net income number, is the credit request appropriate for the company size, right? And this is a really big one. I've had companies that are startups come in and request, $1 million, $2 million. Well, we take a look at the business plan with what's the probability that this will actually grow to that dollar amount, right? To be able to justify that loan. A lot of the times clients will come in and apply and look at the bank more like an investor, not like a lender, right? We're a lender, so we want to make sure that there's a high probability that this loan will be repaid. So, right sizing that loan is something that can be very critical for a loan application. If it's a startup, brand new business, we want to make sure that the ask is appropriate to that. If, there's significant growth and the business can justify a bigger line, absolutely, we'll be happy to take a look at that. I think that having a relationship with the bank is very important, because as your business is growing, as your needs change, it's good to have a conversation with your banker and say, hey, look, last year we did this. We had a great year. We're looking to grow. How can you help me increase my line of credit? Or, I've been thinking about buying a commercial property. Can you help me with that? I need some equipment for my business. All these little different things happen through the lifespan of the business. And it's good to have that conversation with your banker, just because you'll understand what the bank's guidance is on that. And you may say, hey, that doesn't work for me. Let me talk to another bank. And you talk to another bank, maybe you got to talk to a third bank, right? I think having these conversations explored in a kind of research-based ways is very critical to businesses, because you want to make sure that you make the best decision for your business. Like Moises mentioned earlier, it's a cost-benefit analysis. Am I better off, trying to make things work with this bank, or this other bank that I've been talking to? They're willing to give me the capital based on the numbers that I presented. Does it make sense for me to switch over, right? So it's always good to have those conversations. It's part of the day-to-day of running a business, and I'll say that the solutions are out there. I'm looking for them.
And how often should a company come in to talk to the banker? How many times a year?
I say at least once a year. Yeah, at least once a year, right? Or if you say, there's the potential for me to take on a great project, it's a couple months down the road, but I want to see what you can do now. Don't think that once a year is a one-size-fits-all kind of recommendation. I say at least once a year, just because it's at a minimum. But as your business grows, as it has needs, maybe that's once a month, right? It just depends on what questions you have and what help you need from the bank.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Theo, if you want to chat more than happy to, take down my information, shoot me an email. We'll schedule some time. We'll take it from there. But again, thank you so much to the Bureau, Olga, Brian, for hosting us. Love the opportunity to educate and bring valuable content to anyone that's looking to get it. So thank you again, and look forward to the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So just, we're going to go over some available resources, just so you all know. The Paths of Success workshop series, this is what this is. They'll continue through April 2024. There is a code that you can scan, or you can go to the website directly. There's different series, and you can check that out. Sign up for the different workshops. They are held Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. These are our January workshops. Our next one is January 23rd, and it's insurance bonding and risk management for construction firms. So you can go to the website and sign up. And if you have questions before the actual workshop, you can fill out the form here, and then the next slide has the example of the form, and you can scan the code here, and it'll take you directly to that. We also have the workshop and webinars on the IDOT YouTube channel, so you're more than welcome to check those out. So here you're going to go to IDOT Supportive Service Consultant and YouTube playlist, and that's where you'll find our different previous workshops that we've held, and then this one too will also go on the YouTube channel. And you can scan the QR code or click the link in the chat to provide feedback about this session. And then just a reminder, this event was recorded, and you will receive a copy of it and a copy of the presentation, and then links to resources and programs. You can contact me if you need Moises or Humberto's information. I am happy to share that with you. Also, Mr. Carl Riley. And then you will also receive upcoming workshops and events. And then you can contact the contact information for OBWD staff, consultants, and contract compliance officers. So thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And then for any
Thank you.
additional information, you can contact the Supportive Services Bureau of Small Business Enterprises. So thank you, everybody. That concludes our workshop for today. Again, thank you to Chase Bank with an excellent presentation. And we look forward to having you again.
Thank you, Moises.
Bye-bye now.
Good job.